The rain came out of nowhere. One moment, Lauren was walking home from the hospital after a double shift, exhausted but satisfied with a day well spent. The next, the sky opened up with the kind of downpour that soaked through clothes in seconds and turned city streets into rushing rivers. She ran for the nearest shelter, a small café she'd passed hundreds of times but never entered. The kind of place that looked expensive and intimate, with warm lighting visible through rain-streaked windows and the promise of safety from the storm. Lauren pushed through the door, dripping and shivering, and stopped short. The café was empty. Completely empty except for one man sitting at a corner table, a cup of coffee in front of him, his attention fixed on the rain-lashed windows. He turned when she entered, and Lauren found herself caught by his gaze. Dark eyes that seemed to see more than they should. A face that was striking in its controlled stillness. He was elegant in a way that suggested wealth without ostentation. Dark suit that fit perfectly, expensive watch catching the light, an air of refinement that made Lauren acutely aware of her soaked scrubs and disheveled appearance. "I'm sorry," she said automatically, water pooling at her feet. "I just needed to get out of the rain." The man stood, moving with a grace that suggested either dance training or martial arts discipline. He slipped off his suit jacket without a word and crossed the space between them, holding it out to her. Lauren stared at him, then at the jacket. "I can't take your..." He made a small gesture, not insistent, just offering. His expression was gentle despite the intensity of his eyes. And Lauren realized he wasn't going to speak, wasn't going to explain or persuade or justify the offer. Just standing there, holding out his jacket, giving her the choice. Something about the quiet offering, the lack of expectation in his posture, made Lauren accept. She took the jacket, feeling the warmth of his body heat still trapped in the fabric, and wrapped it around her shoulders. "Thank you," she said quietly. He nodded once, a small acknowledgement, then gestured to the table where he'd been sitting. An invitation to join him, if she wanted. No pressure, no demand, just possibility. Lauren should have declined. Should have stood by the door until the rain passed, keeping appropriate distance from a stranger. But something about this man's silence felt safe in ways she couldn't articulate. Like he understood that sometimes presence was enough, that words could be intrusive, that shelter meant more than just protection from weather. She moved to his table and sat across from him. He settled back into his chair, his attention returning to the windows where rain continued to sheet down in torrents. Neither of them spoke. Minutes passed in comfortable silence. Lauren found herself studying him. The way he held his coffee cup with careful precision, the slight furrow between his brows as he watched the storm, the controlled stillness of someone who'd learned to be patient with time and circumstance. He wasn't fidgeting or checking his phone or doing anything to fill the silence. Just existing in the moment with complete presence. It was oddly mesmerizing. A barista appeared from the back, young, probably college-aged, looking apologetic. "I'm so sorry, we actually closed 15 minutes ago. The storm warning came through and we sent everyone home early. I was just finishing cleanup when..." She noticed Lauren's soaked state. "Oh, do you need anything? Coffee? Tea? I can make something quick before I lock up." "Coffee would be wonderful," Lauren said gratefully. "Black, please. And I'll pay for his too." She gestured to the silent man across from her. The barista smiled. "His tab is already settled. But I'll get you that coffee." She disappeared back behind the counter. Lauren looked at the man, finding him watching her now with that same intense attention. She expected him to say something, to introduce himself, to ask about her day, to make small talk the way strangers typically did when thrown together by circumstance. But he remained silent, just watching her with eyes that seemed to understand things about her she hadn't said. About the exhaustion that went bone deep, about the weight of a job that required constant emotional labor, about the loneliness that came from caring for everyone else without anyone caring for her. It should have been uncomfortable, being seen that clearly by a stranger. Instead, it felt like relief. "I'm a nurse," Lauren found herself saying, needing to fill the silence even though it felt comfortable. "A nurse. Just finished a 16-hour shift. I probably look like I've been through a war zone." The man's expression shifted slightly, Not quite a smile, but something warm and understanding. He reached for a napkin and the pen he'd been using earlier, writing something in elegant script before sliding it across the table. You look like someone who helps people. That's beautiful, not frightening. Lauren felt something catch in her chest at the simple affirmation. Thank you. That's kind. He wrote again. Truth, not kindness. Why aren't you speaking? The question came out before Lauren could stop it. I'm sorry, that's rude. You don't have to explain. He held up a hand, gentle interruption, and wrote, sometimes silence says more than words. And you look like you needed quiet, not conversation. He was right. After 16 hours of constant noise, monitors beeping, people shouting, phones ringing, the endless demands for attention and response, silence was exactly what Lauren needed. And somehow this stranger had seen that without her having to explain. The barista returned with coffee, gave them a sympathetic smile about the storm, and retreated to finish her closing duties. Lauren wrapped her hands around the warm cup, feeling the heat seep into her cold fingers. How did you know? She asked quietly. That I needed quiet? The man considered this, then wrote, You have the look of someone who gives constantly. Sometimes the greatest gift is receiving without expectation of return. Lauren stared at the words, feeling them sink deeper than they should. This stranger understood something fundamental about her. The exhaustion of emotional labor, the depletion that came from caregiving, the need for someone to simply give without asking for anything back. Who are you? She asked. He smiled then. A real smile that transformed his entire face, made him look younger and infinitely less austere. He wrote, Someone who understands storms. Both weather and the kind that live inside people. It was cryptic but somehow exactly right. Lauren found herself smiling back. I'm Lauren. He wrote his name in that same elegant script. Sebastian. It's nice to meet you, Sebastian. Lauren felt strange talking while he wrote, but somehow it worked. The rhythm of their exchange, her speaking, him writing, both of them existing in this bubble of shelter and warmth while the storm raged outside. Sebastian wrote, Stay until the rain stops. No rush. No expectation. Thank you. Lauren sipped her coffee, feeling warmth spread through her that had nothing to do with the beverage's temperature. For the jacket. For the silence. For not asking questions, or demanding explanations, or expecting anything in return. He nodded, then turned his attention back to the windows. Lauren followed his gaze, watching the rain create patterns on the glass, listening to the percussion of water hitting pavement. Feeling the strange intimacy of shared silence with a stranger who somehow didn't feel like a stranger at all. They sat like that for 20 minutes. Not speaking, not writing, just existing together in the quiet space while the storm did its work outside. Lauren found herself relaxing in ways she hadn't in months. The constant tension in her shoulders easing, her breathing deepening, the exhaustion transforming from overwhelming to manageable. Sebastian's presence was unlike anything she'd experienced. He wasn't trying to fix her or entertain her or extract anything from her. He was simply there, solid and quiet and unexpectedly comforting. Like he understood that sometimes the best thing you could offer someone was just your presence without agenda. When the rain finally started to ease, Lauren felt an unexpected reluctance to leave this warm, quiet space. To return to the world that demanded constant engagement and response and performance. I should go, she said quietly, starting to remove Sebastian's jacket. He shook his head, making a gesture that clearly meant she should keep it. When she started to protest, he wrote, Keep it. Return it another time. Give us both an excuse to meet again. Lauren's breath caught at the implication. You want to see me again? Sebastian's smile was gentle as he wrote, Very much. If you're willing. I don't know anything about you, Lauren pointed out. Except that you're kind and understand silence and write beautiful observations about strangers. He wrote, And I know you're a nurse who helps people, who's exhausted from giving constantly, who needed shelter from more than just rain. Sometimes that's enough to start with. He was right. Sometimes the profound connections happen quickly, built on understanding rather than information, on feeling rather than facts. Okay, Lauren said. Yes. I'd like to see you again. Sebastian pulled out his phone, typed something, and showed her the screen. A contact card with his number. Lauren entered it into her own phone, then looked up to find him watching her with those intense dark eyes. "Thank you," she said again. "For tonight. For the shelter and the silence and the understanding. I didn't know I needed this until you offered it." He wrote one more note and handed it to her. "Everyone needs shelter sometimes. I'm glad I could provide it. Text me when you get home safely." Lauren nodded, folding the note carefully and tucking it into her pocket along with the others he'd written. She stood, still wrapped in his jacket, and moved toward the door. At the entrance, she turned back. Sebastian was still sitting at the table, watching her with an expression that was equal parts warm and mysterious. Lauren raised a hand in goodbye, and he returned the gesture. Then she stepped out into the cooling evening, the rain now just a light drizzle, and walked toward home wearing a stranger's jacket and carrying the memory of the most meaningful silence she'd ever experienced. She texted him when she got home. "Home safe. Thank you again for everything." His response came immediately. "Thank you for sharing this storm with me." "Sleep well, Lauren." Lauren fell asleep that night thinking about dark eyes and elegant handwriting and a man who understood that sometimes the greatest gift was presence without expectation. And wondering what it meant that one chance encounter in an empty café had affected her more deeply than months of conventional dating ever had. Lauren returned Sebastian's jacket 3 days later. She'd tried to return it sooner, but her work schedule had been chaotic. Back-to-back shifts, emergency situations that kept her late, exhaustion that made anything beyond basic survival feel impossible. But on her first day off, she texted Sebastian asking when and where they could meet. His response suggested the same café, if she was comfortable with that. Same time as before, around 9 p.m. when the evening crowd had thinned. Lauren arrived 10 minutes early, nervous in ways she couldn't quite explain. She dated before, had been in relationships, understood the typical rhythms of getting to know someone. But this felt different, more weighted. Like something significant was beginning and she needed to show up for it properly. Sebastian was already there, sitting at the same corner table, a book open in front of him. He looked up when she entered, and his face transformed with that smile that made him look less austere and infinitely more approachable. Lauren crossed to his table, holding out his jacket carefully cleaned and folded. He accepted it with a nod of thanks, then gestured to the chair across from him, the same invitation as before, quiet and without pressure. "Hi," Lauren said as she sat. "How have you been?" Sebastian pulled out his phone, typed, "Better now. How was your week?" "Exhausting," Lauren admitted. "We had a multi-car accident come through the plus the usual chaos." "I think I've slept maybe 20 hours total in the past 3 days." Sebastian's expression shifted to concern. He typed, "That's not sustainable. Are you taking care of yourself?" "I'm trying," Lauren smiled slightly, "though I'm not always great at it. I focus so much on taking care of patients that I forget to focus on myself. I understand that tendency." Sebastian showed her his screen. "Work can become consuming when you care deeply about it." "What do you do?" Lauren realized she didn't know. "For work, I mean, private security consulting. I help people navigate complicated situations that require discretion and expertise." He typed efficiently, his thumbs moving across the screen with practiced speed. "That sounds mysterious." "Sometimes it is. But mostly it's problem solving and risk management. Helping people feel safe when circumstances make that difficult." Lauren thought about that. "Is that why you're good at reading people? Professional skill from the work?" Sebastian's smile was slightly self-deprecating as he typed, "Partly, but also personal experience. I've learned to pay attention to what people don't say as much as what they do." "Is that why you don't speak?" Lauren asked the question that had been building since their first meeting. Some kind of deliberate choice? Sebastian was quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. Then he typed something longer. "I can speak. I'm not physically incapable. But I found that silence allows me to observe better, to be more present, to avoid the noise that often obscures genuine communication. It started as an experiment and became a preference. Do you ever speak? Or is it always silence in writing?" I speak when necessary. Emergency situations, important conversations that require voice. But for casual interaction, for getting to know someone, I prefer this. It forces intentionality. Every word written matters because it takes effort. Lauren absorbed this. And you're okay with the fact that I talk while you write? That feels unbalanced. It feels perfect, Sebastian typed. You give voice to thoughts and I give consideration to response. We balance each other. There was something profound in that observation. Lauren had never thought about conversation as balance before. But Sebastian was right. His silence created space for her to speak without interruption, without the constant competition for airtime that characterized so many interactions. Tell me something real about you, Lauren said. Something beyond the surface level. Sebastian considered this, then typed. I'm rebuilding myself. Who I was 5 years ago isn't who I want to be now. So I'm deliberately changing patterns, including how I communicate. It's uncomfortable sometimes, but necessary. What made you decide to rebuild? Watching someone I care about suffer because I wasn't paying close enough attention. I was too focused on my own noise to hear what they weren't saying. By the time I understood how bad things were, they'd already been deeply hurt. I decided I never wanted to miss those signals again. I'm sorry, Lauren said quietly. That must have been painful. It was. But it taught me something valuable about presence and attention. About the importance of understanding what people need rather than what they say they need. They talked for 2 hours like that. Lauren speaking, Sebastian typing, both of them sharing pieces of themselves with increasing openness. Lauren learned that Sebastian had a younger sister he was protective of, that he read philosophy and poetry, that he lived alone because he needed quiet to recharge. Sebastian learned that Lauren had become a nurse to help people, that she played piano though she rarely had time anymore, that she was lonely in ways she didn't usually admit to anyone. When the café started closing around them, Lauren felt that same reluctance to leave she'd experienced during the storm. Something about Sebastian's presence made her feel less alone, less exhausted, less burdened by the weight of constant emotional labor. Can I see you again? She asked as they gathered their things. I know that's forward, but I'm tired of pretending I don't want things I actually want. And I want to know you better. Sebastian's smile was warm as he typed. I want that too. Dinner? My place? I cook well and I promise my apartment is quiet and safe. That sounds perfect, Lauren said. When? Friday? If you're off work? I'm off. Text me your address and what time. They left the cafe together, walking in comfortable silence, until they reached the corner where they'd part ways. Sebastian touched her arm gently, stopping her. He typed, Thank you for returning my jacket. And for sharing another evening. You're extraordinary, Lauren. I hope you know that. Lauren felt warmth spread through her chest. You make me feel seen in ways I'm not used to. It's strange and wonderful and slightly terrifying. Being truly seen is terrifying, Sebastian typed. But also necessary for real connection. I'm glad you're willing to risk it. I'm glad you are too. Sebastian leaned in and kissed her forehead. A gentle, brief touch that felt more intimate than anything more aggressive would have. Then he stepped back, gave her that small wave goodbye, and turned down his street. Lauren walked home thinking about intentional silence and deliberate communication, and a man who wrote poetry in text messages and made her feel more understood in 2 meetings than some people she'd known for years. She texted him before bed. Thank you for tonight. Looking forward to Friday. His response made her smile. Me too. Sleep well. Dream of quiet things. Over the next 2 days, they texted frequently. Short exchanges throughout Lauren's busy shifts. Sebastian checking if she'd eaten, Lauren sending photos of interesting cases, with patient information removed, both of them sharing small observations about their days. It felt natural and comfortable despite the unusual dynamic of him typing everything. On Friday evening, Lauren stood outside Sebastian's building, an elegant high-rise in a good neighborhood, and felt butterflies in her stomach. This was different from meeting in public. This was accepting an invitation into his private space, acknowledging that what was developing between them was significant enough to take that step. She buzzed his apartment. His response came through the intercom. Come up. 10th floor. Lauren's breath caught. His voice was exactly what she'd expected. Deep, controlled, with an accent she couldn't quite place. So he did speak. Just rarely. Just when it mattered. The elevator ride felt too short. Lauren checked her reflection in the mirrored walls, suddenly nervous about her appearance. She'd dressed carefully, nice but not too formal, attractive but not like she was trying too hard. Now she worried it was all wrong. The elevator doors opened directly into Sebastian's apartment, a penthouse, Lauren realized. Open floor plan with floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture that looked expensive and comfortable in equal measure, and a kitchen that smelled like something incredible was cooking. Sebastian emerged from the kitchen, and Lauren felt her heart skip. He was dressed casually, dark jeans and a gray sweater that made his eyes look even more intense. He smiled when he saw her, crossing the space to greet her properly. For a moment they just looked at each other. Then Sebastian opened his arms in invitation, and Lauren stepped into them. The hug was warm and secure and lasted exactly as long as she needed it to. Long enough to feel comforting, not so long it became awkward. When they separated, Sebastian pulled out his phone and typed, "Welcome to my home. Make yourself comfortable. Dinner is almost ready. It smells amazing. What are you making?" "Risotto with mushrooms, roasted vegetables, and a salad that's more interesting than it sounds." "I promise everything is good." "I believe you." Lauren followed him to the kitchen, watching as he moved between pots and pans with practiced ease. "Can I help?" Sebastian considered, then handed her a glass of wine and typed, "Your job is to relax. Sit at the counter and tell me about your week while I finish cooking." It was surprisingly easy to follow that direction. Lauren settled onto a bar stool and talked about her shifts, the difficult cases and small victories, the exhaustion and satisfaction that came with nursing. Sebastian cooked while she spoke, occasionally pausing to type a response or ask a question. His attention clearly focused on both the food and her words. The dinner was as delicious as promised. They ate at Sebastian's dining table, overlooking city lights that stretched to the horizon. Their conversation, or rather, Lauren speaking and Sebastian's typed responses, flowed easily, ranging from serious topics to playful observations to comfortable silence. After dinner, Sebastian made coffee and they moved to the living room. Lauren curled into the corner of his comfortable couch, and Sebastian sat at the other end, close but respecting her space. "Can I ask you something?" Lauren said after they'd been quiet for a few minutes. Sebastian nodded. "Phone ready." "Why me? Of all the people you could have offered your jacket to, could have invited for coffee, could have spent time getting to know. Why did you choose me?" Sebastian was quiet for a long moment, typing and deleting and retyping. Finally, he showed her. "Because when you walked into that café, soaked and exhausted and still apologizing for taking up space, I saw someone who gives constantly without expecting return. Someone strong and caring and beautiful in ways that have nothing to do with appearance. Someone worth knowing deeply instead of just casually. And I wanted to offer you the same care you offer others. Presence without expectation, shelter without demand, understanding without explanation." Lauren felt tears prick at her eyes. "That's the most beautiful thing anyone has ever said to me. It's the truth. You deserve to be seen and valued for who you are, not just for what you can give others." "Come here," Lauren said quietly. Sebastian moved closer, and Lauren shifted to lean against him. His arm came around her shoulders, solid and warm, and they sat like that for a long time, not speaking or typing, just existing together in comfortable silence while the city lights flickered outside. "Thank you," Lauren finally said, "for dinner and conversation in this. For making me feel like I matter beyond my job and my ability to help people." Sebastian pulled out his phone with his free hand and typed, "You matter immensely." "I hope you're beginning to believe that." "I'm starting to," Lauren admitted. "Because you make it easy to believe. You're different from anyone I've ever known, Sebastian. The silence, the intentionality, the way you see things others miss, it's all extraordinary." "You bring out the best in me," he typed. "Make me want to be even more deliberate about care and attention and presence. That's what extraordinary people do. They elevate those around them." They stayed on the couch until late. talking and being silent in equal measure, both of them acknowledging without saying it explicitly that something significant was developing between them. Something worth nurturing carefully and intentionally. When Lauren finally said she should go home, Sebastian called her a car service and walked her down to meet it. At the curb, he pulled her into another hug, this one lasting even longer than the first. Then he typed, "Thank you for trusting me enough to come here. For sharing your evening. For being exactly who you are without apology. You're remarkable, Lauren. I hope you never forget that. I hope you never stop reminding me," Lauren replied. She got in the car feeling lighter than she had in months, her heart full of possibilities and her mind replaying every moment of the evening. And when she got home, there was already a text from Sebastian waiting. "Home safe? Dream of quiet things and know that you matter more than you realize." Lauren fell asleep that night thinking about profound silences and deliberate care and a man who made her feel seen in ways she'd never experienced before. And wondering what it meant that she was already falling for someone she'd met less than 2 weeks ago, who communicated primarily through written words, and who somehow understood her better than people she'd known for years. Over the next month, Lauren and Sebastian fell into a rhythm that felt as natural as breathing. They saw each other 3 or 4 times a week. Dinners at Sebastian's apartment where he cooked, elaborate meals while she decompressed from her shifts, quiet evenings at museums or art galleries where they could exist in companionable silence. Long walks through the city where Sebastian would type observations about architecture, or people or the way light hit buildings at different times of day. Lauren introduced him to her world gradually. He came to the hospital cafeteria during her lunch breaks, sitting quietly while she talked about difficult cases or hospital politics. He learned the names of her colleagues, remembered details about their lives, made Lauren feel like her work mattered not just professionally but to him personally. And Sebastian let Lauren into his world too. She learned that his security consulting work often involved protecting people from complicated threats, that he had resources and connections that suggested wealth and influence, that he was deeply committed to helping people who fell through the cracks of traditional protection systems. But beyond the work, she learned who he was underneath the controlled exterior. That he played piano beautifully but only when he thought no one was listening. That he volunteered teaching self-defense classes to abuse survivors. That his younger sister, Emma, was his entire world and that much of his protective instincts came from failing to see how badly she was being hurt until it was almost too late. "Tell me about Emma," Lauren said one evening. They were at Sebastian's apartment. Lauren stretched out on his couch with her head in his lap, while he absently played with her hair. It had become their comfortable position, close and intimate without being sexual, just enjoying each other's presence. Sebastian reached for his phone and typed one-handed, his other hand still in Lauren's hair. "She's everything good about our family. Smart, kind, creative. She wanted to be an artist, went to college for fine arts, met a guy who seemed perfect, but he wasn't. No, he was controlling and manipulative and eventually violent. By the time I realized how bad things were, she'd been isolated from everyone who could help her. The day she finally left him, he put her in the hospital. Broken ribs, concussion, bruises that took months to fade. Lauren reached up and took his hand. "I'm so sorry. That must have been devastating." "It was, and it changed me. Made me realize I'd been so focused on my own life, my own career, that I hadn't paid enough attention to what was happening right in front of me. I promised myself I'd never miss those signs again. But I'd learned to see what people weren't saying, to understand the silence between words. Is that why you're so good at it? Why you can read people the way you do?" "Yes. I studied psychology, body language, the subtle signals people give when they're in distress. And I practiced being silent myself so I could hear others better." Emma's situation taught me that sometimes the most important information is what people don't say out loud. Where is she now? Safe. Living in Seattle under a different name. She's rebuilding her life, has a gallery showing her art, is even dating again though it took years for her to trust anyone. Sebastian's expression softened. "She's thriving. But it took a long time and a lot of support. And you still protect people because of what happened to her." "Yes, I can't save everyone, but I can save some. And every person I help is one less Emma in the world." One less person suffering because they weren't seen or heard or protected when they needed it most. Lauren sat up, turning to face Sebastian directly. You're extraordinary. You know that, right? Right? The way you turn tragedy into purpose, the way you use your skills to help people, the deliberate care you put into everything you do. It's remarkable. Sebastian's smile was gentle as he typed. You make me want to be worthy of that praise. To live up to the person you see when you look at me. You already are. Lauren leaned forward and kissed him. Their first real kiss. Soft and careful and full of feeling that had been building for weeks. Sebastian responded with a gentleness that made her chest ache, his hand coming up to cup her face with reverent attention. When they finally broke apart, both breathing harder, Sebastian typed, I'm falling in love with you. I know it's fast. But I need you to know, I'm falling in love with you too, Lauren admitted. And you're right. It's fast. Maybe too fast. But it also feels more real than relationships I've had that lasted years. Like we've skipped past all the superficial getting to know you stuff and gone straight to understanding each other. Asterisk. Because silence doesn't allow for superficiality. Every word written matters. Every moment shared is intentional. That accelerates connection. I like that about us, Lauren said. The intentionality. The presence. The way neither of us is just going through the motions. I like everything about us, Sebastian typed. The way you light up when you talk about saving someone's life. The way you curl into me like I'm home. The way you've accepted my silence instead of trying to change it. The way you make me feel seen even though I'm the one who's supposed to be good at seeing others. They spent the rest of that evening wrapped around each other on the couch, trading kisses and typed confessions and comfortable silences that said more than words ever could. And when Lauren finally went home late that night, she felt like something fundamental had shifted between them. From possibility to commitment. From getting to know each other to building something lasting. Over the following weeks, their relationship deepened in ways that felt both thrilling and secure. Sebastian met Lauren's friends, charming them with his typed observations and his obvious devotion to her. Lauren met Emma during a video call that left both women teary-eyed, Emma expressing gratitude that her brother had found someone who understood him so completely. But it wasn't all easy. Lauren's work schedule was demanding, leaving her exhausted and sometimes emotionally depleted. Sebastian's security work occasionally required him to be unavailable for days at a time, protective detail work that he couldn't discuss in detail. They had to navigate the normal complications of any relationship. Miscommunications, scheduling conflicts, the challenge of maintaining connection when life pulled them in different directions. One particularly difficult night, Lauren came home from a shift where a patient had died despite her best efforts. A young woman, victim of a car accident, who'd held on through surgery, but coded in recovery. Lauren had been there when it happened, had been the one to call time of death, had been the one to inform the family. She went straight to Sebastian's apartment, using the key he'd given her weeks before. He was in the kitchen when she arrived, took one look at her face, and immediately crossed to pull her into his arms. Bad day? He asked aloud, one of the rare times he spoke, voice gentle and concerned. Lauren nodded against his chest, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Sebastian just held her, one hand stroking her hair, providing the silent comfort she needed. Eventually, he guided her to the couch, settled her with a blanket, and brought tea she didn't remember him making. He sat beside her, close but not crowding, and waited. Just present and patient and available when she was ready to talk. 23 years old, Lauren finally said. She was 23, had her whole life ahead of her. And she died because someone ran a red light. Sebastian typed, I'm so sorry. That's devastating. I did everything right. The whole team did everything right. But it wasn't enough. We couldn't save her. Lauren felt tears sliding down her face. And I know that's part of the job, that I can't save everyone. But knowing that doesn't make it easier when you lose someone. No, it doesn't. Grief for strangers is still grief. Loss is still loss. You're allowed to feel that. I'm supposed to be professional, detached, not falling apart over a patient. I barely knew. You're allowed to be human, Sebastian wrote firmly. Your capacity to care, to feel that loss, is what makes you good at your job. Don't let anyone tell you that professionalism means not caring. Lauren leaned into him, letting herself be held while she processed the day's trauma. Sebastian didn't try to fix it or minimize it or distract her from it. He just provided presence and comfort and space for her to feel what she needed to feel. Later that night, after Lauren had cried and talked and finally reached something like calm, Sebastian typed, "You save lives. That's your gift and your burden. But you don't have to carry it alone. Let me help shoulder the weight sometimes." "How?" Lauren asked. "It's my job, my responsibility." "How can you help carry it?" "By being here on the hard days. By reminding you that losing one doesn't diminish the many you've saved. By loving you through the grief and exhaustion and weight of caring so deeply." Sebastian paused, then added, "You give so much to others. Let me give back to you." "That's what partners do." Lauren felt fresh tears, but these were different. Not grief, but gratitude and love and relief at having found someone who understood what she needed, even when she didn't know how to ask for it. "I love you," she said. "Not just for tonight, but for everything. For the silence and the presence and the way you see me completely. For understanding that I need to care even when it hurts, and supporting that instead of trying to protect me from it." Sebastian pulled her closer, pressed a kiss to her temple, and typed, "I love you too. Completely, intentionally. For all the days ahead, hard and easy alike." They fell asleep on the couch that night, wrapped around each other, both understanding that they'd crossed another threshold, from falling in love to being in love, from possibility to commitment, from two people learning each other to partners choosing to face life together. 6 months into their relationship, Sebastian broke his silence in a way Lauren never expected. They were at his apartment, cooking dinner together in the easy rhythm they'd developed. Lauren was chopping vegetables while Sebastian handled the risotto, both of them moving around the kitchen with practiced coordination. Music played softly in the background, Chopin, one of Sebastian's favorites. "Lauren," Sebastian said aloud, his voice carrying clearly over the music. Lauren looked up, surprised. He rarely spoke, usually only in emergencies or moments of particular significance. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." Sebastian set down his wooden spoon, turning to face her fully. "But I need to tell you something, and I need to say it out loud. It matters too much to be just typed words on a screen." Lauren's heart started pounding. "Okay, I'm listening." Sebastian crossed to her, taking her hands in his. His eyes were intense, focused completely on her face. "I love you. More than I've loved anyone. More than I thought I was capable of loving, and I don't want to just text that or type it. I want you to hear it in my voice. I love you, Lauren. Completely and intentionally and forever." Lauren felt tears well up. "Sebastian, I'm not finished." He squeezed her hands gently. "My silence has been about being present, about paying attention, about hearing what others don't say. But I've realized that with you, I don't want silence to create any distance. I want you to hear my voice saying the important things. That I love you. That I want to build a life with you. That you've changed everything about how I see the world and myself." "You're speaking," Lauren said unnecessarily, her voice choked with emotion. "I'm speaking because you deserve to hear it, not just read it. Because some things matter enough to break patterns for." Sebastian released one of her hands to cup her face. "I want to marry you, Lauren. Want to build a home and a life and a future together. Want to be your partner in every sense of the word. Will you marry me?" Lauren stared at him, processing the proposal delivered in his rarely used voice, understanding the significance of him choosing to speak for this moment. "You're proposing?" "Yes," Sebastian smiled. "I have a ring and everything. But first I needed you to hear me say this out loud. That you're everything to me. That I choose you intentionally and completely. That I want forever with you." "Yes." Lauren's answer came immediately, certain and sure. "Yes, I'll marry you." "I love you so much, Sebastian. Your silence and your voice and everything in between." Sebastian pulled a ring from his pocket, simple and elegant, exactly Lauren's taste, and slipped it onto her finger. Then he kissed her with a depth of feeling that made Lauren's knees weak, one hand in her hair, the other at her waist, holding her like she was precious and essential. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lauren said, "Will you keep speaking? Or does it go back to silence now?" "Somewhere in between," Sebastian replied. "I'll speak when it matters, stay silent when presence is enough. Let you hear my voice for important things. Use writing for everyday conversation. Best of both worlds." "I like that," Lauren said. "I love your silence. But I also love your voice." "Having both feels like a gift. You're the gift." Sebastian pulled her close again. "Everything changed when you walked into that cafe soaking wet and apologizing for taking up space. I took one look at you and knew you were going to matter to me. Didn't know how much, but I knew." "I felt it too," Lauren admitted. "Something about your silence, the way you offer your jacket without expectation, it touched something in me that I didn't know needed touching. Made me feel seen in ways I'd never experienced." They finished cooking dinner together, both of them giddy with joy and possibility. Over risotto and wine, they talked about the future, where they'd live. Sebastian's apartment was bigger, but they'd make it theirs together. When they'd get married, soon. Neither wanted to wait long. What their life would look like, supporting each other's demanding careers. Building a home that felt safe and welcoming. Maybe children eventually when they were ready. "Tell me something," Lauren said as they cleaned up dishes later. "Why did you really stop speaking most of the time?" "You said it was about being present and observing. But was there more to it?" Sebastian was quiet for a moment, considering. Then, speaking aloud, "After what happened to Emma, I was angry. At myself for missing the signs. At her ex for hurting her. At a world that let men like him hurt women without consequence. I talked to a therapist who suggested I was filling silence with noise to avoid dealing with difficult emotions. That my constant talking was actually preventing me from processing trauma." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "So I experimented with silence. Forced myself to sit with feelings instead of talking through them. And I discovered something profound, that silence creates space for real understanding, both of yourself and others. That sometimes the most important communication happens without words. It transformed how I saw everything, including myself." "And now?" Lauren asked. "Does silence still serve that purpose?" "Now it's a choice rather than a necessity. I can speak when I need to, stay silent when it serves better. Having both options feels powerful in ways I didn't expect." Sebastian smiled. "But meeting you made me want to reclaim my voice for the important things. Because you deserve to hear how much you mean to me, not just read it." "Thank you for that," Lauren said softly. "For trusting me with both your silence and your voice. For choosing to speak when it matters most." They spent the rest of the evening on the couch, making plans and dreaming aloud about their future. Sebastian spoke more that night than he had in months. His voice warm and certain as he described the life he wanted to build with Lauren. Over the next few weeks, they navigated the logistics of combining their lives. Lauren gave notice at her apartment and started moving into Sebastian's penthouse, which they immediately began transforming into a space that reflected both of them. They set a wedding date for 6 months out. Small ceremony. Close friends and family only, focused on commitment rather than performance. Emma flew in to meet Lauren properly, and the three of them spent a weekend together that left all of them teary-eyed and laughing and grateful. Emma pulled Lauren aside at one point and said, "Thank you for loving my brother. For seeing past the silence to who he really is. He's different with you. Lighter, happier, more himself than I've seen him in years. He's changed my life too," Lauren replied. "Made me feel seen and valued and loved in ways I didn't know were possible." "I'm the lucky one." "You're both lucky," Emma said firmly. "That's what real partnership looks like, both people feeling grateful to have found each other." Lauren's friends were equally supportive, though some admitted they'd been concerned at first about her relationship with someone so silent and mysterious. But meeting Sebastian, seeing how he interacted with Lauren, made believers of all of them. He had a way of making people feel heard even without speaking much, of contributing to conversations through thoughtful gestures and perfectly timed observations. "He's not what I expected," Lauren's best friend Maria said. "But he's perfect for you. He lets you be loud and expressive while providing the calm foundation you need." That's rare. The wedding planning was remarkably smooth. Sebastian's organizational skills and attention to detail meant nothing was forgotten or overlooked. Lauren's ability to make decisions quickly kept them from getting bogged down in endless options. They worked together like they'd been doing it for years, each complementing the other's strengths and compensating for their weaknesses. 3 months before the wedding, Lauren came home from a particularly good shift to find Sebastian at the piano. He was playing Chopin, the same piece that had been playing the night he proposed. Lauren stood in the doorway, watching his hands move across the keys with practiced grace, struck again by how much this quiet, careful man had transformed her life. When he finished playing, Sebastian looked up and found her watching. He smiled, speaking aloud. "How was work?" "Good. We saved 3 lives today, including a young woman who would have died without immediate intervention." Lauren crossed to him, settling onto the piano bench beside him. "I kept thinking about what you said, that losing one doesn't diminish the many you've saved." It helped. "I'm glad." Sebastian put his arm around her, pulling her close. "You're remarkable at what you do, Lauren. Never forget that. Play something else," Lauren requested. "Something that makes you think of us." Sebastian considered, then began playing something Lauren didn't recognize, slow and melodic, with layers of complexity that revealed themselves gradually. It was beautiful and intentional and perfectly them. "What is it?" Lauren asked when he finished. "Something I composed," Sebastian admitted. "These past few months, when I couldn't sleep and needed to process everything I was feeling. It's called Shelter from the Storm." Lauren felt tears prick at her eyes. "For me? For us, for the night we met. For finding each other when we both needed shelter from different kinds of storms." Sebastian turned on the bench to face her fully. "You're my shelter, Lauren. The place I feel safe being completely myself. I wanted to capture that in music. It's perfect." Lauren kissed him softly. "Like you. Like us. Like this whole improbable, beautiful thing we're building together." They stayed at the piano for another hour, Sebastian playing while Lauren leaned against him, both of them marveling at how far they'd come from that rainy night in an empty café. From strangers sharing silence to partners building a future. From casual offering of a jacket to deliberate choosing of forever. Sometimes the most profound connections began in silence. Sometimes the most important words were the ones spoken rarely. And sometimes, finding shelter from a storm led to finding home in another person. Lauren and Sebastian's wedding was exactly what they'd wanted. Intimate, meaningful, and perfectly them. 50 people gathered in a small art gallery Emma had helped them book, the space filled with soft light and Emma's paintings on the walls. No wedding party, no elaborate ceremony. Just an efficient and 2 people choosing each other deliberately and publicly. Sebastian spoke his vows aloud, his voice steady and certain. "Lauren, you walked into my life soaking wet and apologizing for taking up space. In that moment, I saw someone extraordinary, strong and caring and beautiful in ways that transcended appearance. I offered you my jacket without knowing it was the beginning of offering you my life." He paused, his dark eyes intense on her face. "You've taught me that silence doesn't have to be lonely. That being seen completely is worth the vulnerability. That love is about presence and intentionality rather than grand gestures. I promise to be your shelter in storms, your quiet in chaos, your partner in all things. I choose you today and every day. Intentionally. Completely, forever." Lauren felt tears streaming down her face as she spoke her own vows. "Sebastian, you offered me shelter when I needed it most, but you gave me so much more than protection from rain. You gave me your presence without expectation, your understanding without judgment, your love without condition. You see me completely, the exhausted nurse, the woman still healing from past relationships, the person trying to help everyone while forgetting to help herself." She squeezed his hands. "You've taught me that real love is quiet and constant, that being cared for doesn't mean being controlled. That partnership means shouldering each other's burdens willingly. I promise to be your voice when yours isn't enough, your presence when silence is too heavy, your partner in building the life we've both dreamed of. I choose you today and forever. Deliberately, completely, with my whole heart." The officiant pronounced them married, and Sebastian kissed her with a tenderness that made the small crowd sigh collectively. When they broke apart, both smiling through tears, Lauren whispered, Hello, husband. Hello, wife, Sebastian replied aloud, his voice carrying enough that everyone heard. And then, to the surprise of most guests, I love you more than words, spoken or written, could ever adequately express. The reception was held in the same gallery space, transformed with tables and soft lighting and food Sebastian had helped plan meticulously. Lauren's nursing friends mixed with Sebastian's security contacts. Emma charmed everyone with stories about her brother's younger years, and the whole evening felt warm and perfect. During their first dance, to a recording of Sebastian playing his composition, Shelter from the Storm, Lauren said quietly, "This is everything I never knew I wanted." "Me too," Sebastian replied. "I thought I'd build my life around solitude and work. Then you appeared and changed absolutely everything. No regrets?" "Not a single one." Sebastian pulled her closer. "You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Every moment from that rainy night to right now has been worth it." They danced in comfortable silence after that, both processing the weight and joy of having committed to each other so publicly and permanently. When the song ended and guests applauded, Lauren looked up at Sebastian and found him watching her with an expression of such love and devotion that it took her breath away. "What?" she asked, just memorizing this moment. "You happy and beautiful in that dress. US, married and beginning our life together properly. All the possibilities ahead." Sebastian smiled. "I want to remember exactly how this feels." "It feels perfect," Lauren said. Like everything finally makes sense. They spent the rest of the reception surrounded by people who loved them, accepting congratulations and well wishes and predictions about their future. When Emma gave her toast, she said simply, "To my brother, who learned to see others by first learning to be silent. And to Lauren, who saw him completely and loved him anyway. You're perfect for each other, and I couldn't be happier for you both." Late that night, in a hotel suite Sebastian had booked for their wedding night, they finally had quiet and privacy to process everything. Lauren stood at the windows overlooking the city while Sebastian made tea, their evening ritual maintained even on their wedding day. "Come here," Sebastian said, settling onto the couch and gesturing for her to join him. Lauren curled into his side, accepting the tea he offered. "So we're married." "We're married," Sebastian confirmed. "How does it feel?" "Right, exactly right." Lauren sipped her tea. "Like we just formalized what was already true, that we're partners, that we're building a life together, that we're choosing each other intentionally and completely." "I love you, Mrs. Moretti," Sebastian said, testing out her new name. "I love you too, Mr. Moretti," Lauren replied, smiling. "Though I'm keeping my last name professionally. Hope that's okay." "It's perfect. You should keep your identity, your independence, all the things that make you who you are. Marriage doesn't mean losing yourself. It means finding someone to build alongside." Sebastian set down his teacup and pulled her closer. "Thank you for marrying me. For choosing me despite all my quirks and complications. For seeing past the silence to who I really am. Thank you for teaching me what real love looks like. For being patient with my healing, for supporting my work, for making me feel valued beyond just what I can give others." Lauren kissed him softly. "For being my shelter from storms and my home in the quiet." They made love that night with a tenderness that felt appropriate for their wedding night. Slow and deliberate and full of whispered promises about the future. And when they finally fell asleep in each other's arms, both felt the certainty of having made exactly the right choice. 1 year later, Lauren stood at the windows of their apartment, still Sebastian's penthouse, but transformed over the past year into their shared space, and watched rain sheet down exactly like it had that night in the café where they'd met. Sebastian appeared behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. He didn't speak, just held her while they watched the storm together. "Remember the night we met?" Lauren asked quietly. "The rain, the empty café, you offering your jacket?" "I remember everything about that night," Sebastian replied aloud. "The way you apologized for taking up space. The exhaustion in your eyes. The moment I knew you were going to matter to me. Did you know we'd end up here? Married, building a life together, this happy?" "I hoped." Sebastian's arms tightened around her. But I didn't dare believe it would actually happen. You were extraordinary from the beginning, and I was just someone who happened to be in the right place at the right time. You were exactly who I needed, Lauren corrected. Someone who understood that silence could be comforting. That presence was sometimes enough, that I needed shelter from more than just weather. You saved me, Sebastian. Not from rain, but from loneliness and exhaustion and feeling like I had to carry everything alone. And you saved me from isolation and from thinking that silence had to mean being alone. From believing that my way of being in the world made me too different to be loved. Sebastian turned her in his arms, cupping her face gently. We saved each other. That's what the best partnerships do. Lauren leaned up and kissed him, grateful for storms that brought people together, for silence that created space for real connection, for a man who'd offered his jacket without expectation and ended up offering his life. Their work continued. Lauren still saving lives at the hospital, Sebastian still protecting people through his security consulting. But now they had each other to come home to. Someone to share the burden of caring deeply about work that was both difficult and meaningful. Someone who understood exhaustion and triumph in equal measure. Emma visited frequently, her art career thriving, her own healing progressing steadily. She and Lauren had become close friends, bonded by their love for Sebastian and their shared understanding of what it meant to rebuild yourself after trauma. On their first anniversary, Sebastian prepared an elaborate dinner and presented Lauren with a gift, a bound collection of all the notes he'd written her from that first night in the café through their first year of marriage. Each one carefully preserved, chronologically arranged, creating a tangible record of their relationship developing through written words. So we never forget how we started, Sebastian explained. With silence and presence and intentional communication. That foundation is what makes everything else work. Lauren paged through the collection, reading notes that ranged from profound observations to silly jokes to declarations of love. She stopped at one particular note from early in their relationship. You make me want to be worthy of the person you see when you look at me. You are worthy, she said, looking up at him. Of that and so much more. I hope you finally started to believe it. I'm getting there, Sebastian admitted. Having you in my life makes it easier to believe I'm worthy of good things. You're evidence that I must be doing something right. They spent their anniversary evening much like they'd spent many evenings before, cooking together, eating by candlelight, talking and being silent in equal measure, existing in the comfortable intimacy of true partnership. And when they went to bed that night, wrapped around each other, both felt grateful for the storm that had brought them together and the choice they'd made to build something lasting from that chance encounter. Sometimes the most profound connections began in silence. Sometimes a simple gesture, offering a jacket without expectation, changed everything. And sometimes, walking into an empty cafe soaking wet and exhausted was the first step toward finding home in another person. Lauren and Sebastian had both been seeking shelter from different kinds of storms. What they'd found was each other, and that was better than any shelter either could have imagined.